So I know about your experience. I know about your journey. I know about the ups, the downs, and everything in between. Well, not everything, because I don't know it all, but I know quite a bit. But that's just me. And I want to give you the opportunity to kind of chat a little bit about what your journey has been like, and to just kind of let people know who you are and where you are right now.
Yeah. Well, I guess like starting from the very beginning, I was born and raised in Chesapeake. Yep, that's it. 757 is just like, that's where my roots are. That's where my family is. I was born and raised there, and I lived there and in the same family home until I moved to Charlottesville. So that's where I am now. It's been quite a journey to go from that little boy that was born and raised in Chesapeake to, like the child man that I am now living in Charlottesville. Yeah, I was born and raised in a pretty conservative family. We were in church every time that we could be, independent fundamental Baptist. So there were a lot of things that we couldn't do, a lot of things that we should do. And there came a point in my life where I felt like I had more questions than answers, and I didn't exactly know like where to turn to ask for help, or where to turn and say, hey, like I feel a little bit different than what I'm hearing I'm supposed to be or supposed to feel, and I can't quite figure it out. And so I didn't really have any of those resources. And so it was a really difficult time, figuring out who I was and where I fit, and how to use my talents and be passionate about life. It was pretty difficult because I couldn't get to know me, and that was the hardest part. Obviously, I'm glossing over a whole lot of details there, so if you have any questions, like, feel free to ask me. Or if you're watching this post, like, put them in the comments too, and I'll interact with you there. That's fine. I think like the part that a lot of people always ask, like, well, how did you come out, and when did you come out, and what was it like when you came out? I always say coming out, like there is a moment where you say it, and there's a moment where you accept it, and there's a moment where you live it, and they're not always that same. I think for me, I said it before I accepted it, and I accepted it before I had to live it. And it was not easy. It was not fast. It was not comfortable. But it was really great to have gone through that. And I know, we'll talk in another segment about like support networks, but the I had was so important for me to survive that whole coming out process. But yeah, I think that's like a misconception. I don't think coming out is like oh, you're in and then you're out. Woo!
Then everything is just magically okay. Like check in the box. I've done the thing. But no, it is a progress that you it's an actualization, right? Because it's like you said, it's like it's owning it, but then it's also accepting it, and then it's living it. Are there moments that you like questioned when you were out, even though other people in your life knew? Are there moments when you were like, I don't feel comfortable here. This is probably not where I need to disclose this part of me? Or, do you keep that on lock, or do you just like, it doesn't matter? Like, what was that progress like?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the pieces for me that's been part of this really important process and this growth is, I felt like there was a period of my life where I had to say, I'm not gay. No, I'm not gay. I hadn't quite figured it out for myself. And so there was a period of time where when I'm figuring it out for myself, I didn't know how to say that I didn't know what I was. I didn't have the vocabulary, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the support to say, I think something's different than what the expectation was. So there was a period of time where I felt like I had to say, I'm not this. And then there was a period of time where I felt like I had to go back to everyone and say, I am this. Like in that time, I was authentic with every piece of me that I shared.
Yes.
The difference was I was holding one or two pieces back over here. It didn't make me any less authentic, but it prohibited me from sharing even more of that authenticity. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us in the community is like, we're being honest about everything else in our lives. But then we have this one area where we're not sure how to be honest or open about it. And so then we start to feel like, man, I'm lying to everybody in my life. We're not. We're being authentic. We're just holding this piece to figure it out and to work it through. And that was really hard during my coming out time to reconcile this idea that like I was still authentic. I was also working on me. You know, we have to get to a certain point because people are going to have questions. People are going to wonder. People are going to judge. And if we're not at a point where we can present something and say, oh, yeah, actually, I'm not sure about that. Let me get back to you on it. If we're not safe to do that, if we're not secure and confident enough to know more about who we are, it can be so devastating because every question feels like an attack. Every time that, you know, someone says, well, what about this thing? And we don't know the answer. It's like, oh my gosh, am I actually whatever I think I am? And so I think it is really important to, I mean, first and foremost, having that like honest talk with yourself and that growth with yourself. Because at the end of the day, the reality is some of your family is going to disown you. Some of your friends are going to like leave you be. Some people are going to come into your life, but the one person who's going to stay consistent is that person that you go to sleep with every night, and that person that's waking up with you, and that person that's bawling their eyes out in the shower with you, and the person that's eating or not eating when you're stressed. That's the person who needs to have that honest conversation, and that person is ourselves.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. Those are the mirror checks we don't always want to do. They're hard for a reason, right? So let me ask you, you're not young Jay anymore. You're still young. Don't get that twisted because we're fabulous.
Oh, what's so
okay? Like we just can't we're timeless, Jay. We are timeless in this. But the younger version of Jay, who was just coming into himself, who was doing that self-actualization, that growth. Where's he at now?
So he's still here.
Yeah.
That's not going to change. There are some days where he's like up at the microphone, and there are some days where he's over at the sidelines thinking, holy cows, like we did it. I alluded to it before. The process of me coming out was not comfortable and it wasn't easy. I actually was found out by some family members. He was someone I was dating with, and I didn't know that they saw me. And somebody in the family basically asked me about it. Again, glossing over the details, because if you want all the sort of details, you'll have to buy my book one day. But that was really hard because, again, people had those questions, and that young Jay, he had been working really hard to figure out who he was, and he had been working to that point of disclosing to people, but he was thrown in at the last second, right before he was ready, and had to either sink or swim. But because of who he was, now I'm sitting here, the much lesser young Jay, and I can think back to him and reach back to him and remember why it is that I travel around the country doing these seminars and these workshops, why it is that, you know, I host LGBTQ socials, why it is that I am an entertainer in our queer community, because young Jay is still all around us. There are young Jays everywhere who, despite the progress that we have made over the decades, young Jay and young Jay all over the place are still wondering who they are. They're still wondering what the term gay actually means, or they're still wondering, where can I go and be safe? Or do I deserve to love somebody and be married? Or do I have to be married because I don't want to be married? Or can I ever have kids? Or all of these questions. So while young Jay specific to me is like on the sidelines cheering old Jay on, young Jay as like a character is still here. And that's why conversations like these are so important.
So what would more seasoned old soul Jay say to young Jay? What's something you would say to your younger self right now?
All right, so there would be a couple of things, because you know that I could never just have one word for myself, or for anybody for that matter. So one thing I would say is take your time. You got time. It's okay. Like this pressure of I've got to figure myself out right here, right now, or I'm never going to make it. Take your time. Let time think. A cake doesn't bake itself quick. You put it in the oven, you gotta let it sit for a little while. Mm-hmm. So same thing with us. Like, we got to take some time. So I'd say young Jay, take some time. You know, give yourself that time to figure it out. Sure. I would also say the right people are already here and the wrong people are already gone.
Correct. Wow.
The biggest thing for me, y'all, I almost made it through this without tearing up.
Don't do it. I'm believing you, because if you tear, I'm going to tear. Let's.
The hardest thing for me was thinking the people that I love and the people that are most important to my life are going to leave me, and I'm going to be left with nothing. What I found out when I came out was that the right people were already there and the wrong people were already gone. The people who didn't love me for who I was and everything that I was, they didn't love me already. So they just needed an excuse to see the door.
Right.
So the right people were already there. The wrong people were already gone. And I think the last thing that the third thing that I would say to myself is you can be that. I felt like that if I came out as gay, or I came out as queer in any way, that I couldn't be these other things. I still really wanted to identify as a person of faith. And I really wanted to identify as a person who was under the rainbow. And I really wanted to identify as a person who had this hobby and did this thing and enjoyed this other thing. And I was so afraid that I had to pick one thing to be my identity. The reality is, and be that. I can be a person of faith. I can be a person who identifies as queer. I can be an extrovert or an introvert, or somebody who loves to be outside and camping and like dirty, or I can be that person who enjoys to like clean up and put on some makeup, you know? I can do all of those things. And I didn't know that I could. So I think that's what I would say to myself. Take your time. You've got it. The right people are already there. The wrong people are already gone. And you can be that.